Some stories feel like they were pulled straight from the pages of a horror novel. Locked doors, flickering candlelight, and secrets so grotesque they almost defy belief. But when I say this story is true, I mean every disturbing detail. This is a tale of obsession, cruelty, silence, and one of the most baffling deceptions in French history. And what's worse, it went on for over 25 years, while neighbors, family, and even government officials lived just steps away. So how does someone disappear inside their own home, and no one notices? Let's go back to 1901. To a house with green shutters and a secret darker than anyone could imagine. In Poitiers, France, the Monnier family was respected, even admired. Madame Monnier, Louise, was a proud widow from a high-ranking bourgeois background. She was known for her devout Catholicism, her community involvement, and, most of all, her spotless reputation. She had 2 children, Marcel, a successful lawyer, and her daughter, Blanche Monnier, a young woman with beauty that was the envy of all. Blanche was described as radiant. Chestnut hair, delicate features, graceful manners. At 25, she had no shortage of suitors. But there was one problem. Blanche fell in love. And not with a wealthy aristocrat or nobleman, but with an older, penniless lawyer who opposed everything the Monnier family stood for. Her mother despised him. And when Blanche insisted she wanted to marry him, Louise refused. That refusal would turn into a punishment. And that punishment would become a sentence. Blanche vanished. No big public search, no frantic missing persons posters. The Monniers claimed she had run away, shamed by her love affair. People whispered, but respected families don't get interrogated. She was just gone. Vanished from society. And for the next 25 years, not a single person saw her again. Marcel carried on his legal career. Madame Monnier continued hosting tea parties. To the outside world, the Monnier home was as proper and pristine as ever. But behind one of those shuttered windows, something was screaming. Fast forward to May 23, 1901. The French Attorney General receives an unsigned letter. Its contents? Short, cold, and horrifying. Monsieur Attorney General, I have the honor to inform you of an exceptionally serious occurrence. A spinster is locked up in Madame Monnier's house. Half-starved, living in filth for the past 25 years, in her own excrement. At first, authorities thought it was a prank. But the Monnier name was worth investigating discreetly. So they went to the house. They knocked politely. No answer. Then they forced the door. What they found upstairs was not just shocking. It was monstrous. The smell hit first. A thick, suffocating stench that made seasoned officers retch. Behind a bolted wooden door, covered by heavy drapes, they found the source. The room was pitch black. Windows sealed, curtains nailed shut. When they opened the door, what they saw froze them in place. In the corner of a rotted straw mattress, a naked woman lay curled in filth. Her body was skeletal. Her hair matted, long and crawling with lice. She was surrounded by rotting food, insects, rats. She hadn't seen daylight in 25 years. This wasn't a basement. Not a dungeon. It was a bedroom. In a normal, respectable house. And that woman? She was Blanche Monnier. She weighed just 55 pounds. Blanche couldn't speak right away. She flinched from light, from voices. The sudden exposure nearly killed her. But once she stabilized, she began to speak in fragments, memories wrapped in trauma. She said the last thing she remembered was refusing to abandon her lover. Her mother told her, "Then you will stay here until you change your mind." At first she fought, screamed, pounded on the door. But over the years, the screams stopped. Marcel had brought her food, sometimes, but never helped. No doctors, no contact, just darkness. And she never saw her lover again. He died in 1885, 10 years after she was locked away. He died believing Blanche had left him. The public outcry was immediate. The Monniers were arrested. Neighbors were stunned, or claimed to be. Some admitted they'd heard strange noises, smells. But they never imagined this. Madame Monnier was taken into custody but died of heart failure just 15 days later. Marcel was charged with complicity and unlawful detention. He argued that he was just following orders, that his mother was controlling and mentally unwell. But here's where it gets even darker. Marcel was sentenced to 15 months in prison. But on appeal, he was acquitted. The court ruled that while morally repugnant, there was no law in France at the time against imprisoning a relative in their own home. So he walked free. And the Monnier home was abandoned. But the story didn't end there. Blanche was taken to a psychiatric hospital. She was now in her 50s. A woman who had once been the pride of her family, now mentally and physically shattered by decades of torture. For the rest of her life, she would remain institutionalized. But here's where the story takes a strange turn. Because Blanche Monnier had a diary. And what it reveals changes everything. Tucked inside her mattress lining, nurses discovered scraps of cloth, covered in ink. Blanche had written pieces of her life. Words scratched with hairpins, blood, and charcoal. Some pages described her pain. Others, her plans. They will not keep me forever. One day I will be free. And I will show the world the truth. And then, a final chilling line. I was not the only one locked away. The hospital staff dismissed it as the delusion of a broken mind. But then, 3 months later, a maid cleaning the abandoned Monnier house heard something. A noise. Coming from the attic. The world had believed she vanished. But the truth? She was screaming, just on the other side of the wall. And as Blanche slowly recovered, one disturbing line in her hidden diary haunted those who read it. I was not the only one locked away. Now the house is abandoned. Madame Monnier is dead. Marcel is a free man. And yet, the house still holds secrets. August 1901. 3 months after the Monnier scandal explodes across France, a city worker is sent to the now vacant Monnier residence. The house is being prepped for possible demolition. The doors are rotting. The wallpaper peeling. The upstairs window, the one Blanche looked out of for the first time in 25 years, still covered in rusted bars. The worker brings a maid with him, hired to clean what they can. They hear a sound. At first it's dismissed. Houses settle. Wood creaks. But then, the maid swears she hears a dragging sound coming from above. The attic. They assume it's a bird. Or maybe rats. But when they finally open the creaking door at the top of the house, they find something no one expected. A second locked room. The door is sealed shut from the outside, with 4 rusted locks. The hinges covered in scratches. It looks like it hasn't been opened in decades. The worker, curious, and now uneasy, calls in backup. When authorities arrive and force it open, a rush of stagnant air floods the hallway. It's colder than expected. Damn. The room appears empty. But then, they find something. A bed. A rotted nightstand. And carved into the wood of the walls, names. Dozens of names. Including Blanche's. Authorities begin to piece it together. Was this where she was first kept? Or was someone else imprisoned here? And then one officer finds a hidden compartment under the floorboards. Inside, a small cloth-bound book. A second diary. But the handwriting? It isn't Blanche's. The diary reveals the unthinkable. The entries date back to 1860. Nearly 10 years before Blanche was imprisoned. The author. A young boy named Victor Monnier. Blanche's older brother. But here's the twist. No records exist of a Victor Monnier. Publicly, Louise Monnier only had 2 children, Marcel and Blanche. So who was Victor? The diary offers clues. Victor writes about being different, not meeting expectations, frequent beatings from his mother, and then being taken upstairs. For correction, he writes. She says the attic will teach me manners. She says I embarrass the family. I scream, but no one listens. Then abruptly the entries stop. The last page? One single sentence. She says they'll forget me, but I remember everything. Investigators dig into old census data, church records, school rosters, and eventually, they find a baptism certificate. Victor Etienne Monnier, born 1853, died 1867. But there's no death certificate, no burial, no obituary. Victor had simply disappeared. And the year he died was the same year Marcel began law school. And the same year Madame Monnier became a prominent voice in the local Catholic Women's League, a time when appearances were everything. Authorities now suspect Victor may have been mentally ill, or simply failed to meet the family's standards. And rather than seek treatment, the Monniers erased him. Literally. And if he wasn't buried, what happened to his body? In October 1901, demolition begins. The house is being gutted floor by floor. And in the attic, behind the wall paneling, workers discover a trapdoor. Nailed shut. Hidden beneath old books and moldy drapery. They pry it open. What they find changes the case forever. A tiny crawl space, barely 4 feet high. Inside bones. Human bones. Later examination confirms, male, aged around 14 to 16. And nearby, a rusted spoon with the initials VM carved into the handle. Victor had never left the house. By now, public outrage is back in full swing. How could Marcel not have known? How could 2 children be imprisoned, under the same roof, for decades? Marcel is summoned for questioning once more. His demeanor is calm. Cold. He tells investigators he never had a brother. That the diary must be a hoax. That the bones could be anyone's. But the handwriting in the second diary matches an old note kept in city archives. From Victor, dated 1865, thanking a librarian for letting him borrow a book. The writing matches. The ink matches. The nightmare is confirmed. And then Marcel says something chilling. My mother did what she had to do. Some people are born to be forgotten. As preparations begin for a second trial, Blanche's health declines. She's withdrawn. Silent. Some days lucid. Others completely disconnected. But during one moment of clarity, she hands a nurse a letter she says was meant for Marcel, years ago. She never got to send it, because her mother intercepted it. The letter reads, Dear Marcel, I still hear him. In the walls. I think he's above me. Please tell her to let him out. The letter is dated 1871, which means Victor was still alive 4 years after he was officially dead. Blanche knew. And for years, she listened to her brother rot above her. The Monnier house is demolished by winter. The bones are buried under a state marker. Victor's name is restored to the local records. But for Blanche, justice is more complicated. She remains in the asylum until her death in 1913. She never leaves the grounds, never walks freely, never re-enters society. As for Marcel, he disappears. Rumors say he moved to South America. Others say he died under an assumed name in Marseille. But what's most disturbing is what was found in his briefcase when he fled. A third diary. But not from Victor. Not from Blanche. A diary that starts in 1901 and ends in 1907. 6 years after the house was destroyed. The entries begin benign. Notes about daily routines. Cases Marcel is working on. But then, mentions of visits. I heard her again last night. The way she calls. It's almost comforting. I think I should have saved one of them. Not Blanche. Maybe her. And finally, they say the house is gone. But I never really left. I still hear them. And sometimes I answer. Authorities don't know what it means. Some believe Marcel was mentally unwell. Others think he was haunted. Literally. But one investigator, before closing the file for good, said, 3 diaries, 3 locked rooms, but only 2 bodies. There are crimes that happen in broad daylight. Then there are the ones you never see. Not because they're subtle, but because they've been buried. This is the third and darkest chapter in the Monnier case. A family so obsessed with appearances that they imprisoned 2 of their own children, and possibly 1 more. Blanche was found. Victor was uncovered. But now a third diary has been found, written in secret by Marcel Monnier himself. A man who claimed ignorance, but left behind writings that suggest someone else may still be out there. And maybe they never left the house at all. It's 1908. 1 year after Marcel Monnier's final known diary entry. A newly appointed investigator, Etienne Valois, has been assigned to sort through unsolved legacy cases, once tainted by political pressure or conveniently closed due to social class. The Monnier case sits on top of that pile. But what catches his attention isn't Blanche's imprisonment. It's the third diary. The one written by Marcel, the man who claimed to be a bystander. Inside are pages that speak of nightly whispers, movements behind walls, and a presence that never left. Most disturbingly, one entry reads, Mother said she had 3 sins. 1 for love, 1 for shame, 1 for the truth. Valois digs into city archives looking for anything at all, that could indicate another hidden space in the house. Though the structure was demolished, blueprints still exist. And there it is, a crawlspace underneath the cellar. Not listed in most versions. Only on the original 1830s plans, before the house was renovated. A 6x6 stone chamber. Completely sealed off. No entry. No ventilation. No purpose. Except maybe one. The Monnier house had been replaced with a government-run orphanage. Its basement, modernized and tiled, sat above what was once the original stone cellar. With permission, Valois and his team began an excavation. Most assumed they'd find nothing. But 3 days in they broke through old mortar and uncovered a trapdoor in the foundation. Rusty, sealed, and almost perfectly hidden under layers of concrete. When they opened it, a stale, sickly smell escaped. Inside the chamber was a small wooden chair, a rotted blanket, and on the wall, written in soot, "She still feeds me." No body, no bones, just the message. A retired constable, Jean Roux, contacts Valois. He worked the original case in 1901. He tells Valois there was one file never made public. A witness statement. From a neighbor who swore long after Blanche was rescued, she still heard crying. Not from upstairs, but beneath the earth. The neighbor told police, "It sounds like a girl. Younger. Always around midnight." The report was dismissed, because the Monniers had no other daughters. But what if they did? Valois searches church archives, in Poitiers, and then further out. And finally, he finds it. Baptismal records. 1857. Geneviève Monnier. A daughter born 4 years after Victor, 3 before Blanche. No death certificate. No marriage. No school record. And no mention from the family. Ever. It was as if she had never existed. Until now. In a private collection, Valois finds an unpublished letter written by Madame Louise Monnier. It's dated 1872. The year Geneviève would have been 15. She was always so different. Too quiet. Too inquisitive. And the way she looked at me, I feared what she might become. The letter never says what happened. Just one last sentence. She is safe now. Far below shame. Far below sin. God will understand. Valois reviews Marcel's psychiatric assessment from 1902, conducted shortly before his release. One note stands out. The doctor recorded Marcel muttering a single phrase repeatedly during sleep. "The girl in the ground. The girl in the ground. She has no name, but she remembers mine." He said it over and over. Eyes closed. Tears streaming. The same man who denied his brother existed. There is one last page in Marcel's third diary. It is stuck to the back cover. A page that had been skipped or deliberately glued shut. Valois peels it open. Inside, written in tight, frantic script. She isn't gone. She waited for Blanche. She waited for me. She is patient. She doesn't need doors. That night, Etienne Valois wakes in his apartment to the sound of a knock. 3 taps. Then silence. He lives alone. He opens the door. There's no one there. But scratched into the wood. A name. Genevieve. The orphanage above the ruins of the Monnier estate begins reporting strange activity. Cold spots. Children complaining of a woman humming lullabies at night. One child says a girl speaks to him from the floorboards. They move the children. They seal the cellar. But the humming continues. And one worker swears she heard a voice say, "I was not the first. I was not the last." The file is reopened one last time. And investigators now wonder, how many rooms were there? There's a limit to what the human mind can bear. Blanche Monnier survived 25 years locked in a room, unseen and unheard. Victor was erased. Genevieve, hidden so deeply she vanished from all records. And yet, the whispers have not stopped. A third diary. A sealed cellar. A girl's name scratched into stone, heard in dreams, murmured by children who never knew her. What started as a crime of obsession has twisted into something darker. Because now the Monnier house is gone. The bodies are buried. But the curse remains. It's 1913. 12 years after Blanche's rescue. She's just passed away in the asylum. The attending nurse, Elise Berthier, requests a private hearing with the mayor of Poitiers. What she reports chills the room. Elise claims that during Blanche's final days, barely lucid, half-mute, Blanche would often wake at night and whisper, "She's underneath again." Then 2 days before her death, Blanche reportedly sat bolt upright in bed and screamed, "Don't let her out." Just 1 month later, strange events escalate at the government-run orphanage built atop the old Monnier ruins. Children complain of missing toys. Cold air in summer. One child, 6 years old, is found standing in the basement, unmoving, facing a wall. He repeats, "She showed me the ladder." The orphanage is shut down. Staff refuse to return. One worker suffers a nervous breakdown and vanishes during recovery. Later, her diary is found. Inside are frantic entries including one final note. There's a room beneath a room. A voice beneath a voice. She has no eyes, but she sees everything. In 1915, a historian named Lucien Ferrand begins compiling a book on France's most notorious hidden crimes. He's fascinated by the Monnier case, but what draws his obsession is not Blanche. It's Genevieve. He collects witness statements, searches old land records, traces the Monnier family tree back 5 generations. And that's when he discovers something chilling. Every Monnier woman in the direct bloodline has had a daughter born in secret. And in nearly every case, the daughter disappeared. There are no graves, no records, no explanations, just a trail of silence, shame, and locked rooms. Ferrand is granted access to what's left of the Monnier family estate archives. Among the boxes he finds a cracked painting, unframed, torn in places. It shows a young girl around 13, pale skin, hands folded. The words written on the back? Genevieve, still and quiet. But the eyes are missing, deliberately scratched out. Ferrand keeps the painting in his study. He never sleeps again. By 1917, whispers of a curse swirl through Poitiers. Locals believe the Monnier land is haunted. A spiritualist group arranges a seance on the ruins of the house. It begins like most others, candles, hands linked, silence. Then the temperature drops. The flame flickers black. And one of the women begins to convulse. Through sobs, she speaks in a childlike voice. "You left me. You closed the last door. But I opened it again." Then silence. The woman collapses. And when she wakes, her fingernails are filled with dirt. But they'd never left the table. Lucien Ferrand, the historian, disappears in 1918. His apartment is found in disarray. Walls scratched. Floorboards torn up. But on his desk, one last letter is left unsealed. It's not just the Monniers. It's the house. It feeds on secrets, on shame. And there's one more room. Beneath everything. No one ever finds Ferrand again. But his painting of Genevieve? It's missing too. Flash forward to 2018. The land where the Monnier estate once stood is now a parking lot. But renovations are underway for a new community center. Construction workers report electrical surges. Tools going missing. And then, a digger hits something hard underground. Not rock. Not pipe. A sealed door. Hidden beneath 5 layers of foundation. The workers call it in. Archaeologists arrive. They uncover a long, narrow corridor, bricked off at the end. On the final wall, a single handprint. And above it the same name. Genevieve. Authorities finally declassify the third diary. Marcel Monnier's final entry written months before he vanished. She never left. She never died. I think she never even lived. Just memory. Just punishment. And now she wants to be known. Underneath that entry in a different handwriting, feminine, sharp, 4 final words. One more room remains. It said that every family has secrets. But the Monniers turned theirs into tombs. 3 children forgotten. 1 family erased. And beneath it all, a presence that was never supposed to be seen. There is no body for Genevieve. No death certificate. No trace. Only a name. A shadow. And a legacy of silence. And now that silence is breaking. Because late at night, near the ruins in Poitiers, if you press your ear to the ground, they say you can still hear her. Singing. Waiting.